Hand recall is a really, really important skill if you want to get good at poker. Now, how do you improve your hand recall? Usually you want to discuss hands with other people, but it's important to accurately remember your hands. So how about you write them down at the live poker table? Well, it's hard to write the hands down while you're playing. So there's a new app that will help you to do that. It's called Fastroll. A couple of guys in the CLP community have developed this app, and it's really easy to jot all of your hand histories down into the app. You can also export your hand histories in a very standardized format and share them with anyone. And as you are writing your hands down, you sort of develop a database where you can go back and review different positions and different situations. Again, the app is called Fastroll. And if you use the code CRUSHLIVE, you will get the first month for free off their annual subscription. Just check out the link down below. How you doing, Mark?
How's it going?
Another CLP sub. Are you a first-time caller, Mark?
I am.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because I think you're a new sub, actually, because I remember you're a first-time submitter. So where are you playing out of?
This is a hand from South Point in Las Vegas.
South Point. Oh, crusty South Point, as I said last week. All right, what's the size of the game?
I didn't hear the hand last week, but yeah, it's the time capsule for sure. So this is the 3-5 there. It's a 1.5K cap. It's 9-handed.
1.5K. I might have said the same thing last week too. How deep are you?
I'm 1.5 effective.
All right, so 1.5 effective. Okay, yeah.
I don't know anybody at the table, and no one knows me.
Okay.
Because again, I don't really play that game.
Yep.
I do want to play more no limit because I want to get into a half PLO, half no limit game, and I don't want to suck at the no limit round, so I want to like brush up.
Okay.
That's why I started playing more no limit. So preflop action is I'm in middle position and I raise it with Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades to $20.
So you open Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades to 20. Okay.
Yep. And then the hijack, which is next to me, and the button both call.
So hijack, that's this Asian guy. Hijack calls. Yep. And the button calls. And that's about the standard open in this game to 20-ish, something like that.
I think so. I've seen 15.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of nitty. So like I always make it 20.
Okay.
And kind of like the 5 big blind level.
Okay.
And then the flop comes down 10 of clubs, 8 of hearts, 6 of hearts.
10 of clubs, 8 of hearts, 6 of hearts. Hero with Jack with the Jack of Hearts. Okay.
Yeah. I c-bet 40.
All right.
Because I remember from like back in the day, no limit, that's what people do. So c-bet.
So yes.
Like a monkey c-bet, but like, you know, I'm just new.
Well, so I'll get into this. So obviously as we've progressed in no limit, there are certain boards that are bet with different sizings than other boards. The real hard theory is a lot of times multi-way, you're supposed to bet a little bit smaller. Although I always advocate in CRUSHLIVE poker, especially at like this level, when people are usually playing too many hands, you can actually bet a little bit on the larger side. Thing about this board, though, is that there's a straight out there. There are possible 2 pairs out there, too. There's also more draws out there. So it's different than like 10 deuce 3 rainbow. This is 10 8 6. So you can make a case, like I always say, like a very sort of robust bet fold strategy where people will call and you just release when they raise you because they're not really raising you on the come all that much. If you like that strategy that I advocate for, then you can take a larger sizing. So I don't really have an issue here with the sizing. So you c-bet 40, okay?
Yeah. The hijack calls, button calls.
They both call.
Yep.
All right, so hijack and button call. Now, there still might be some slow plays in here, like if someone but a lot of 2-pair and sets will raise off, especially multi-way here. So 40, 80, 120, we're at 185, okay?
Yeah. Turn is the 3 of clubs.
All right, that's a brick. By the way, you said you were 1,500 effective, so these guys have 1,500 too?
Yeah, they deep.
Okay.
They maybe 3K and 4K.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a brick. So here, I talked this through with my friend who's a pro, and he kind of gave me a little bit of a hard time, but I check.
Yeah, so let's stop right there. So hero checks, and again, because you're new and looking for help, again, this is a situation where I went back on the flop where you took somewhat of a larger sizing because people call too much, and then you didn't get raised. So we can't get scared of the fact that 2 guys called. It's not like that crazy that 2 guys called. If you were to hand pick one of the brickiest cards in the deck, this would be one of them, with the exception of the fact that it brings backdoor clubs in. But that just means that you're going to get called more if someone has something like 8x of clubs or a straight draw with clubs. But the sheer fact that you c-bet 40, even though they don't know who you are, unless you don't really have any clue and you were just c-betting everything, tends to kind of make me think that you might have had something anyway, so I wouldn't think that someone would just like suddenly bet. Now, somebody might bet a 10 here, but they were going to call with a 10 anyways. So as played, I'm betting like 100% of the time here on the turn, unless there's something weird going on.
All right, so I'll explain to you my, so I check kind of like for pot control and like a bit to obfuscate my hand. If I bet again, it looks like kind of like the exact hand that I have. So like all aces, like all over pairs, kind of like bet here again.
Uh-huh.
So a little bit to obfuscate my hand. Also, I don't want to kind of get like blown off my pot, and I know this is probably more like a PLO concept. Since I play exclusively PLO, it's sort of like that was in my mind. Like I still have a lot of equity. I don't want to be blown off my hand. If someone like just check back to set on the flop, then I kind of have to call anyway, and I kind of don't want to do that.
Okay, so let me talk about the two things that you talked about. I'll take the second thing first. You said you didn't want to get blown off your equity. Well, you're not playing PLO. If the guy's got a set, you have almost no equity. And if you flop to straight, you're drawing dead. So look at that. So you don't really have any equity to really be necessarily blown off
Over a
of.
pair and flush draw, he could blow me off that.
Well, you have jack. You mean if he raised on the come? You mean?
Yeah, if he has like an overcard.
Well, so this goes to your first part, which you're saying you're sort of checking for pot control. And what I'm going to tell you, from all the years doing this, especially at this level, is that again, I advocate more of a straightforward type of situation here where you don't really have to concern yourself all that much with these types of combo draws really blowing you off of the hand, because there's so few combos of them. And the combo draws have a massive amount of equity against you anyway. It's not anywhere near like what PLO has. Is that if the guy finds a 15 out draw like for 2 combos, and then the other like 16 combos of hands, if you were to like now suddenly raise turn, has you almost drawing dead, you don't really need to worry about it. So pot control kind of goes out the window in these spots if you are taking a robust sort of bet fold strategy. And to be honest with you, a raise, somebody like waking up here on the turn with a raise is even going to be stronger than the flop. So there's just no reason to pot control. That's my take here on the turn. But anyways, okay, so you check.
Yeah, one last thing for the turn is if I have ace king here, right? Like my hand looks like ace king, I see bet, I give up on the turn, and then that would probably give a green light for whoever misses a draw on the river to just bet, and I'm going to pick off that bet. That was like another thought that kind of crossed my mind. I'm not sure if it's valid or not.
Well, so your play in terms of, I think you said obfuscate or play your hand a little bit deceptively, is actually more sound heads up.
Exactly. So I'll come to that later. I kind of played the hand like it's heads up, but oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And the reason why I say it more heads up is because if I'm a guy who has a draw and I'm in either the middle, like if I'm the hijack or I'm the button, and now all of a sudden it's multi-way, if I had a flush draw, I might not bet because of the other guy that's in the hand. Like say, for example, I'm the hijack here. You check a blank turn, I'm on a flush draw, and the button has already overcalled the flop. Maybe sometimes I bet, maybe I don't. But if I were heads up against you and you checked this brick card, I would be betting a flush draw in position a lot, because usually you're not expected to check this turn. And that's where you get the whole deceptive thing. Like, oh, okay, all of a sudden I check the turn. Maybe you're going to get me to fire with queen jack. That goes out the window multi-way though. To the point where it's interesting, if I was the button and you checked this card and then the hijack checked, I might bet a front door flush draw because I would expect the hijack to probably bet a 10. And honestly, because you checked this brick card, if I was the button, I probably wouldn't think that you had anything. But if I had a flush draw that wasn't like ace high that needed, to get people to fold, I might bet. It would be interesting for the hijack, but this sort of play your hand as disguise works better heads up. So you check. It's 10 of clubs, 8 of hearts, 6 of hearts, turns to 3 of clubs. Okay, so you check.
So the hijack bet's 150.
Wow, that's a big bet.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay, so he bets 150.
Yeah.
And
button folds.
All right, so the button folds out.
Yeah. And I call thinking I could, like on all like blank rivers, I can check call.
Well, I don't know about that's another interesting thought that you have there. So I think it's probably way too nitty to just fold. You're getting what's called turn pot odds here. I mean, the pot's like it's 335 and it's 150 for you to call. So the way I would look at this is like you're getting just over 2 to 1. So you can be, as long as you're good here, like 1 out of 3 times, or at least
Yeah, never folding.
combined with the equity, it can go check, check at the end. Now, what you just said was, well, I can call, and then if I get a brick river and I check and the guy bets, I can just check call. That is a very, very common, I would say, I've used the word misnomer lately, where, oh, I have to call the river if the river's a brick when nothing changes. And I have always said, and it still holds true, the bet in itself is change. Because remember, he still has some thick value hands that might have been slow played off. He bet 150 next to act. Remember what I said about, like, if I had the draw and I was in the hijack, it wouldn't always be a bet because I've got the guy behind me?
Yeah. So that kind of occurred to me like later after the hand. So I think like after like looking back at the hand later gave me a lot more clarity than like in hand. And yeah, we'll get to the river. And
well, it's interesting because some guys are even saying, Nate, even mentioning the possibility of a check raise as for value. The issue that I have with that, though, I mean, because you're unblocking top pair, I still think that there's a lot of value that you lose to, and this might be a little bit of an overplay if you check raise here when there's 2 pairs that are available, which we, of course, unblock, and straights and sets. So check call 150, pot is what, 485 now, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we go to the river, and the river is the 2 of spades.
Well, that's a brick. So that's the brickiest card in the deck. The only thing that changes is if somehow the guy had like 4 or 5 of hearts.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think so, but maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like super outlier, like bell curve distribution very far to the left or right.
So you check, I assume.
I check. I actually love this card. It kind of fits into my plan that I had made up in my mind, not knowing afterwards the plan was a little bit flawed, as you said. So I check, and he sort of not like instantaneous, but he takes like 3 seconds and then bets 450. And this is with 4 blacks and 2 greens.
All right. So hijack bets 450 with 2 blacks and 2 greens. So he's betting just under the size of the pot. So this is my take. Before you tell us what happened, I'm just going to give you my take on this hand, okay? Just coming from, I mean, not that you would ever see any type of thin value bet in PLO, that would be worse, but almost, I can say with almost 100% certainty, whenever you get into these situations, one of the first things that you have to ask yourself is there any possibility that with this bet size and this line, my opponent might be value betting a hand that is worse than mine? There's no possibility of that with this particular. He is never betting, I don't think, ace 10 like this, almost never. Where you might have a hand where it's close might be like if you had like 10-8, like top 2 or something like that, but where you played it this way and you're like, well, is he value betting anything? Or like pocket 6s or something like that. So this is going to be 2 pair plus for value, or it's going to be some sort of busted draw for the most part.
Yeah. Exactly. The only hand I could find was like maybe 9-9 to get called by ace king, right? Like that's like so like out there. It's never going to happen, as you said, right? We can't worry about these like fringe scenarios.
Right.
Yeah. So ace 10 suited is probably a 3-bet in this game from what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, as you said, like I beat. What kind of hands do I beat? Right. I beat the missed draws. So overcards with a flush draw, I beat, and then Jack of Hearts, 10 of Hearts isn't available because I got the Jack of Hearts.
Right.
So that's less available. Jack of Hearts, 9 of Hearts also not available. I blocked that too.
And one of the other things too I got to bring up here too, again, just from my observation, and things really haven't changed all that much, is although we have heard anecdotally that things are moving, I don't think it's going to see this in the spot. Another great thing about playing the $5 blind level is that players are going to be pretty happy, because I'm looking in the live chat, someone saying pocket 9s, 9-8. A lot of those hands don't get turned into bluffs. It's interesting because I feel like they just don't need to, because you've actually played this hand like in an unorthodox way. Like you checked a brick turn. So if I've got 9s and I somehow took this sizing, I don't think I need to bluff here, or 9-8. I think I check it back.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. Also, the overcards of the flush draw, like thinking back to the hand, I don't think he would bet turn that way. As you said, he must be concerned about the guy behind him a little bit. So why would he bet the turn like that? So I kind of like discounted that too afterwards, but that's the hands that I thought he would be betting with, and I could like snap off.
Well, and then the other thing too is you look at the flop and you're like, well, wouldn't he raise strong hands on the flop with a guy behind him? What you'll find is sometimes people with like the immortal nuts, which would be like 7-9 of hearts, things like that, where they have all the action killing cards, they will slow play some of the time.
Exactly. Then why 150 on the turn? Like, keep the guy in if you have if you have that strong of a hand, keep the guy behind you.
Yeah, but you got to start building. Like if I flatted with 9-7 of hearts and then I got an overcall on the flop, like I don't mind his sizing. I'm blocking like all the one pair hands. I don't think anyone's going to necessarily fault you for calling here, but it's pretty close. I mean, like I said, and I think you've kind of hit on one of the more important things too, which is like, is he betting like this on the draw in between on the turn for this type of sizing with the guy behind him? If that sort of discounts a lot of his draws, just the action on the turn, he might end up with more value here.
Yeah. So I misplayed this hand. The other things that came to me as I talked this through with someone was, if he bets turn and then he misses river and now he has to bluff river, he's going to get looked up so often because it just like is so obvious. And this game is really rec heavy. So like I feel like even the shitty recs have learned that the bluffs here don't get through against the unknown. Like, I'm like 45 years old. I, kind of like, I'm clean cut. Like this type of money isn't really scaring me away. So like I can call this all day, and with a hand that it looks like I have some sort of hand that I will be able to snap off bluffs. So it's like just a bad spot to bluff, feels like afterwards. In the moment, I kind of like monkey clicked it, and I was like, I call, but without really good reason, which kind of is like what bothers me about this hand a lot.
Well, the one caveat that I'll take to this, though, you have to keep remembering, though, is that the turn play is unorthodox, meaning that he might actually have some bluffs where you might be saying everything that's sort of in line, but most of the time you're not going to have somebody check and overpair in your spot, so that might change things up a little bit. Although I will say, though, if I'm your opponent and I thought you were calling me down with some sort of ace high, I don't know if I need to necessarily bet this much to get you off of that. It sounds to me, what you say, you monkey click called.
I did. So the other things that kind of like, if he bets here with a misdraw, there's also like other life tendencies at play, right? So turning your hand into a bluff versus unknowns is really rare. So if I beat that, that's kind of like rare. He would just click it, like check it back, as you said. Most people do that even at the 3-5 level. Betting full pot versus unknowns is also rare, right? Like why are you choosing that big of a bet size if you just want to get a bluff through versus an unknown? And bet sizing that is confusing will get looked up more. So that's another reason why I almost talk myself into folding, because live tendencies is you do something confusing, I look like a tourist to him. I've just moved to Vegas, so like I'm fairly new. They've probably never seen my face at that game. Like I look like a tourist to him, so like he does something confusing. If he's a good regular or like even good pro, confusing things will get looked up because humans are curious.
So what happened? What was his hand?
He rolled over 8 of spades and 6 of spades for 2 pair.
8 of spades, 6 of spades. 8 of spades, 6 of spades that he did not raise on the flop. It was bottom 2. By the way, not that this is any type of like thin value bet, but as you mark, right? This is mark. So as you start to play more live no limit, I think it's really, really important to absorb what I'm about to say, because I've been talking lately about characterizing unknowns. So you don't know anybody at the table, right? And we've talked about playing on Club WPT Gold where you can see people's stats, but how do you characterize unknowns when you don't know them and you're playing live? I would mentally recognize that this guy made a good value bet, even though it's a slam dunk value bet, that a lot of players who are mediocre at this level would not find with this type of sizing. If you see a guy ever check back like 8-6 in a spot like this,
horrendous.
It's horrible, absolutely horrible. So just remember that.
So 2 other considerations I want to bring up, right? Because you talk about sometimes the biggest game in the room, and I think it's the biggest game in the room problem that I also kind of fell victim to here, because his skill level is effectively uncapped. There was a 5-10 wait list that I failed to check if he's like on there or something like that. So turns out later he's on the wait list of the 5-10, and he's actually a pro at the area that plays 25-50 a lot.
Which is interesting, because that kind of, if he's an aware pro, that kind of makes me even actually want to fold out the river more because of what you're saying. If you're into total unknown, this doesn't look like a lot of, if people know the game size, if this guy recognizes the game size, this really shouldn't be a bluff line.
Yeah, but he's also not guaranteed for me to level myself into calling this, right? Like his river size looks like he's like scary, bluffing a tourist for like, $500. That's a lot of money. I don't want to go home to the wife and tell her I lost, money on the river calling with a losing hand, whatever. So like he's not guaranteed I'm going to level myself into calling, but then he did. So like I felt like I got really outplayed here, and I feel
I don't know, man. Most people at that level, most people at your level are gonna, if they played the hand like that, they're not finding the fold from you. The fact that you're even thinking through it, so that consideration, like if I'm that guy, like I'm not like, oh, I think this guy's gonna check fold jacks. No, it's I'm trying to. Hopefully, he's playing pot control in the turn and he's gonna call me with an overpair. Mark, I gotta move along. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.